and welcome to session 6 of Tarot on 2020, the pandemic special. So we are going to talk today about court cards and how you can tell if a court card is a person, a situation, an aspect of yourself, or some other way of interpreting a court card, because people have asked me to explain a little bit about how court cards work. So we're going to explain court cards, and I'm also going to talk more about the Kabbalah, and I've written several books on the Kabbalah. Probably one of the more accessible ones is The Magician's Kabbalah, and also I've written one under the pen name for Tali Goodwin and myself, Andrea Green, and that is called A Step-Up Guide to Kabbalah. And that's a very introductory book to Kabbalah. This is a little bit more of a reference manual for esoteric and initiatory material on the Tree of Life, which we see here. So I'm going to indulge myself and answer a few questions about the Kabbalah and what it has to do with tarot, and then we are going to read straight from the Wake World from Contes on Pax by Alistair Crowley, and hopefully we'll see how all of these start to come together. It's highly likely we're going to be doing these sessions for quite a while, so we've got plenty of time to wend our way through all sorts of esoterica, and I can take questions, we can have a chat, and we can see how we're going. So hello to Debbie, Simon, Lily, Kimberly, Eleonora, Steph, Derek, Evelyn, Derek and Adela who've so far joined us, and there are about 20 people joined us so far. And hello to everyone. This is the wave for people watching this as a recording as well. Tomorrow I'll probably take a look at a bit more Kabbalah and some tarot for rituals, manifestation. People have asked me about that, and there's never been a better time to talk about how tarot interacts with the universe and how the universe interacts with tarot. So if you have questions and so on, and hello Vera down in Perth. So Kabbalah, it's a massive subject. I've got a zillion books on it, and have researched it both academically and from the Western esoteric initiatory system perspective for the whole of my life. And it always enthuses me as to how it works and what it does to awareness. And this is the primary thing. If I had to say one thing, if I had one sentence to give about Kabbalah, and actually the whole of Western esotericism, there'd probably be several sentences in a queue, but if I only had one chance to give one sentence, it would be about our state. Kabbalah is a map of our relationship to universe, to our current real experience happening right here and right now. It is nothing else other than that. If it diverts you from your current experience, then you have to recognize it is merely that. It is a diversion. And the problem is that quite often people are busy using these sorts of concepts and ideas and mysteries in order to protect themselves from reality. And this is why I've always gone by the tagline of tarot to engage life, not escape it, because it's very important that we don't try and fill the mysteries into our current state and reduce them. We must enlarge our state to comprehend the mysteries. It was Bacon that said that originally. And I sometimes use the analogy of we must use these materials to dig our escape tunnel, not use them to just wallpaper the walls of our cell. and I often see people just taking on these things in order to decorate their cell and their prison, not to actually use to escape the attachments and trap that they're already in. So that would be my singular takeaway for Kabbalah, that it is a map of our escape route through changing our state of relationship to the universe. And everything else is a convoluted extension of that. And sometimes we have to get more complicated in order to get more simple. In Zen, they say, at first there was just a mountain, and then there was no mountain. And then there was a mountain. And I think we have to go that sort of route. In Western esotericism, it's sort of, first of all, there was a mountain, then there were lots and lots and lots and lots of mountains, and then there was just one mountain again. So I think we go a slightly different route, but I think it always gets us to the same mountain. So we're going to talk briefly about Kabbalah and about court cards. So I'll explain about court cards first, because that's a really practical thing, and I have a very simple rule for it. There's an article in the Tarot Association site, and also I think it may be in the Facebook group, called Why We Can't Read Court Cards and How to. There is one problem with court cards: they are people. So we have a King of Wands, we have a Queen of Pentacles. And when we look at a person, we never ever think of them as just one thing. They are never ever one thing. We don't look at one person and say they are a builder, because they can also be a husband or a wife or a mother or a father or a sister or a brother. They can be a model train enthusiast. They can be all of these things. They're not just one thing. So we are trapped when we try and read court cards as one thing. And people always want to know, are they a third person? Are they the seeker themselves? Are they a situation? And we can't. When we look at a person, we can never do that. So that's why we can't read court cards. We can't. It's just impossible. But there is another way of seeing court cards if we can escape the idea that they are people. When we look at the court card and we see it as a person, we're already trapped into the idea that we're trying to read, what does this person symbolize? Try and think of it as, what is this personage or personality symbolizing? So you have to just slightly switch your worldview about with the court cards and think the court cards are levels of energy being expressed through the depiction of a person. They are levels of energy. And this leads us to Kabbalah and to my simple trick about court cards, which is this. If we look at the Tree of Life, and there's one on the back, and I'll show you another in a minute, then the major arcana represent processes and archetypes, the big patterns on the Tree of Life. And these are our lessons that we learn going back up the tree. So they also represent the creative process coming down. So the major arcana always represent the creative process, or going up, the learning process. Hence, resource, lesson, or challenge, as we sometimes teach tarot. So they represent the creative process of the universe, and everything is a creative process. Whether it's a relationship or whether it is a project or anything, everything is a creative process. So the majors, and that's why you can just do major only readings, because everything is a creative process. The majors represent all of the patterns of creativity, therefore you don't really need all of the other cards. But then you have levels and stages of the process, because once we live in time, temporal linear time, we have an issue, because one thing happens after another, and things are always progressing, or we are always remembering things. We live as if we're in a timeline, and that goes back to NLP and things like that, although I tend to call it time space rather than a line, because some people don't think of things in a line in time. So therefore we have 10 stages because we have 10 fingers, and it's useful to count that way, coming down the tree of life of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or going back up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, sort of, back up the tree. So therefore the aces, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s and 10s of the minor arcana represent stages of a process, and there are faults. And so we divide the universe into 4 aspects. For example, pentacles, material, life, resources, wands, energy, cups, emotions, and swords, thought. Therefore, in those 4 worlds, you can then have 10 stages of how far you've got in that world, from the ace at the top to the 10. Okay, so with the majors and the minors, you have a full map of anything that happens in the universe, any situation you can model with just those cards, because you have all of the fundamental patterns of creation and learning, and all of these stages that every process goes through, even if it's a cyclical one and it returns back to the top and goes round again. And also the stages of destruction as we go back up the tree. However, we are missing one thing in our model of the universe to get real precision as to being able to model any situation, and that is levels of energy. And we already have those in those 4 worlds that I talked about, and those are the court cards. And what better way to symbolize the level that an energy is operating at, as well as the stage that it's got to and the patterns that underpin it, than human beings? It's a nice, simple way of representing levels of energy. The level of a teenager is very different to the level of an elderly person. The level of energy of the female, stereotypically or archetypally, is different to the level of energy expressed as a masculine energy. And so by having 4 worlds and 4 levels of energy, you have a matrix of 16 levels of energy operating in 4 different worlds that then map onto the tree as well. So we can map any situation, past, present or future, by knowing the stage that it's got to, the patterns that underlie it, and the levels of energy that it's operating at. And then we can predict what's going to happen, we can divine what's going to happen, we can give advice, we can show where it's out of balance, and everything else that we do in every tarot reading. So that's how I see court cards. Does that make sense? Yeah, pips are like milestones along the route to an outcome. They are the stages. So when we get to the 10, we have to gather all of those 10 wands up into one wand, and that makes it the ace of wands, and then we start back down the tree. The 10 cups, the 9 cups make the rainbow, is it on the 10? And then we collect those together and we make the ace of cups, and that creates new life, and then we come back down the tree again. So we have the fundamental building blocks with the majors, and that's why I was able to get away with reading majors only for a couple of years when I was 13, because it could model even 13-year-olds' lives very adequately. But for the detail of the stages that something's got to, or the stages that are out of balance in a situation, and the levels of energy that are applying to it and in what world they're applying to it, because it's sometimes useful to know that a relationship is all about the thought process. So as Marcy is saying, the court cards are used as levels of energy instead of people. But here's the trick, and here's the wonderful twist if you approach it from this structural map. And this is this. You can tell very easily if a court card is a person, an aspect of the situation, or a part of yourself or the querent, very easily as a result of this. And this is how. And it's a very simple rule. So Diane's saying, what is this about? I am new. So hello Diane, what we're doing is we're just talking about tarot in a series of impromptu videos whilst we go through the current pandemic and we're all sort of locked in our houses. I will reference books, for example today The Magician's Kabbalah, and we're also reading a bedtime story from Aleister Crowley which relates to tarot. If you want, you can go back to the first lesson in the Facebook group and we've talked about tarot, and I'll do a beginner's lesson in tarot at some point in a few minutes, because we can teach tarot like within 3 minutes to somebody, so that they're able to read any card in any deck, even the 10-minute method is for any deck, including the Marseille deck, for any question, and then you spend the rest of your life just practicing. It's a bit like chess. The rules are simple, the application and the lessons that you then go on to learn are a lot more complicated along the way. So elements, yeah, and levels of energy. Okay, so here we go. Is it a person? So a King of Wands, for example, we know that is in the world of wands. So for me, that is the world of ambition, will, lifestyle, spirituality, because it's the wand by which, the staff by which you prop your belief system up by and you walk by. You use that as your support, your values in life as you walk along and take actions. And so it's in that world. So it's the world of values. The king is the highest level of energy, and it's a masculine energy, so it's a forceful energy. So the King of Wands is an energy that's at the masculine, mature level of being fixed, solid, experienced, and in the world of values. So fixed values would be a simple way of looking at that level of energy. Then if you do a 10-card reading, for example a Celtic cross, then if you have one court card, and this is a fast and simple rule for beginners, it may be useful for experienced readers as well, before you get a bit more, I guess, intuitive about it. But if you have one court card in a reading of several cards, then that is usually because that level of energy in that world is manifesting as a person. So if you have one court card, that is usually because the reading, the map, the model is saying that level of energy, I want to represent the level of energy in that world as one person. It's a human being in the situation, whether it's the client, the querent, their partner, a friend, a business colleague, a stranger, someone they're going to meet, whatever, it's a person. If it's one card, it's a person. At the other extreme, if you get a load of court cards in a reading, like 3 or 4 of them, then it's not, unless it's for children or young adults, in which case they relate to a lot of people in a very different way than adults. It's very important to them. And so in children's readings and in young adults readings, when I was testing this out, you often get a lot of court cards, and they're a lot easier to read because those relate to a lot of people. However, for most readers, for most querents, sitters, clients, if you get a lot of court cards, they are aspects of the person that you're reading for, or yourself if you're reading for yourself. They are aspects of that person. So if you've got a Knight of Swords and a Queen of Pentacles, then and a Page of Wands, then those 3 levels of energy in those 3 worlds are parts of that person, aspects of their psyche, their worldview, that you can address in the reading. So you look at those and you say, well, I can see that the part of you that always likes to go on adventures and travel, the Page of Wands, that part of you was in the past. and now it's replaced by more Queen of Pentacles. And this is the part of you that is more nurturing, that is more blah blah blah. However, it's crossed by the King of Swords, which is the more analytical part of you, and you're always perhaps seeing yourself in a bad light because you're telling yourself various things. So you can then relate those court cards very quickly and easily to the levels of energy in those worlds in that person. Okay, so if it's one card, it's because those levels and that world is manifesting, focusing, and it's arriving in the universe, in the situation, through a human being who is manifesting that quality in the querent or your life, whoever you're doing the reading for. It's one person. If it's a load of court cards, then it's aspects of the person themselves. So you can guess that if it's somewhere in the middle, like if it's a couple of court cards in a 10-card reading, or 3 maybe, that could be parts of the person, it could be the middle bit. But if it's just a sort of middle ground, then it's aspects of the situation. So if you had the Knight of Swords and the Knight of Discs in a reading, then that would be this project that you're involved with, there's a lot of energy for it to really make decisions quickly, and the people involved in it are having to really work out which bits of their resources and time management they should cut, because it's the Knight of Pentacles and the Knight of Swords almost fighting with each other. And so it's aspects of the situation that you can then apply those court cards to. Nice and simple rule, and it makes sense in terms of our Kabbalistic map and the way that things really do manifest in the universe. Does that make sense? That if it's one card, read it as a person. If it's a load of cards, comparatively to the number of cards you have in the reading, it's aspects of the person themselves. And if it's somewhere in between, read it as aspects of the situation. Now, all of those things often overlap, because sometimes the things happening in our life are reflecting the imbalances inside ourselves, because the universe is making that correspondence. And we end up in situations where those things are often tested and challenged. So brilliant. Okay, and you can come back to this reading, this video, and review that if you're unsure. It's in Tarosophy, it's in the Magician's Kabbalah, it's in why you can't read court cards and how to, within the Tarot Association website as well, I think, and it may even be in the Facebook group file section also. Okay, so you can begin with that at least, and then play around with it, and that is the method I use. That is how I tend to read them, unless there's some other indicative thing. If someone came to me and said, my team is in a mess, what do I do about it? And I get a load of court cards, I may well relate those to the people, but I'm going to also see how those people are firing off inside the psyche of the client, and why those people to them are not working, because one will reflect the other. So you can get a bit more nuanced with it, but it's a very simple method to start with, and it tends to work, or at least give you a stepping stone into then reading a little bit further, without looking at court cards. I used to hate court cards when they turned up. I'd think, oh no, I've got to read a court card, and I'd sort of be reading around the Celtic cross and avoiding the court card in it, because I was trying to figure out what it might mean. So for me, I had to come up with a simple method for myself that made sense, and that was one that has come from experience. Okay, so that was a brief introduction to the Tree of Life, very simply, and we're going to look at that in a bit more detail as we go along. And the Tree of Life is a part of the system of Kabbalah, which is a system of Jewish mysticism, and has been co-opted into the Western esoteric system because it provides us a useful map and model to hang everything else on: astrology and tarot, and models of the human being, models of the deities, creativity, manifestation, and anything else you want you might want to apply to it. Okay, so that's all I'm going to cover for today on the Tree of Life, but we will be returning to it a lot. In our bedtime story, which I'm going to read in a second, we'll see that we are moving up the Tree of Life, starting from the servants' quarters, and the fairy story is about how this gets up to here through the agency of the fairy prince, which is the Tiferet section of the middle of the tree. So the fairy prince comes down, takes the virgin's soul and takes it up through the tree to the crown at the top, to the top. And so it's a fairy story, but it's a lot more than that. Oh, that's nice that Vera's getting the Magister. That's a huge book, and that does have an awful lot in it. I'll show you the book tomorrow, but we're currently sort of rewriting it slightly with the co-author on that, which is who is Charlotte Louise, and we are working on that to make it a bit more streamlined and to call it Volume 1, because I was being a bit pretentious by calling it Volume 0, because I felt it was a sort of 0 on the Tree of Life outside the tree, and then Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would go up the tree. But it confuses me and it confuses everyone when I have to refer to my next book is Volume 1, and it makes no sense at all. So we're going to renumber Magister Volume 0 as Volume 1 properly and streamline it a little bit. It'll be much the same content, but then we'll release Volume 2, which is the one more to do with Yesod, and that has a load of dream work, guided meditation, astral travel, rising on the planes, the psychology of Western esotericism, a Cthulhu thing, some stuff about Satanism as well in a very different light than people might expect, and all sorts of other things, male and female mysteries, stuff like this, and that will all be relating to this volume here. So that will be Volume 1, which is currently Volume 0, and that will be Volume 2, properly renumbered. Okay, so we're going to read our bedtime story, and this is Wake World by Alistair Crowley. I'm just going to put my glasses on for this, and we'll make a start at the reading of it. So I'm just going to read straight through this, and then perhaps tomorrow we'll take a look at where we are on the Tree of Life. But there are some clues in it as we're listening. So where are we? So we got to Yesod, the foundation, and the fairy prince had told Lola, who is taking up through the Tree of Life, all the palace rests upon this house, but you are called Lola because you are the key of delights. Many people stay here all their lives, though. I made him kiss me, and we went on to another passage which opened out of the servants' hall, which is Malkuth. This passage, and you'll guess where we are, or at least which tarot card it is, this passage was all fire and flame and full of coffins. There was an angel blowing ever so hard on a trumpet, and people getting up out of the coffins. My fairy prince said, "Most people never wake up for anything less." So we went. At the same time it was, you see, in dreams people can only be in one place at a time. That's the best thing about being awake. Through another passage, which was lighted by the sun. Yet there were fairies dancing in a great green ring, just as if it was night. And there were 2 children playing by the wall, and my fairy prince and I played as we went, and he said, "The difference is that we are going through. Most people play without a purpose. If you are travelling, it is all right, and play makes the journey seem short." Then we came out into the 3rd or 8th, it depends on which way you count them, because there are 10, into the 3rd house. And that was so splendid you can't imagine. In the first place, it was a bright, bright, bright orange colour, and then it had flashes of light all over it, going so fast we couldn't see them, and then there was the sound of the sea, and one could look through into the deep, and there was the ocean raging beneath one's feet, and strong dolphins riding on it and crying aloud, "Holy, holy, holy," in such an ecstasy you can't think, and rolling and playing for sheer joy. It was all lighted by a tiny, weeny, shy little planet, sparkling and silvery, and now and then a wave of fiery chariots filled with eager spearmen blazed through the sky, and my fairy prince said, "Isn't it all just fine?" But I knew he didn't really mean it, so I said, "Kiss me." And he kissed me, and we went on. He said, "Good little girl of mine, there's many a one stays there all his life." I forgot to say that this whole place was just one mass of books, and people reading them till they were so silly they didn't know where they were going or what they were doing. And there were cheats and doctors and thieves. I was really very glad to go away. So we can see as we pass up the tree there are various traps in each of the houses and Sephiroth, numerical emanations of the Tree of Life as we go up. So we can see that we are heading in this area here, with Hod and the shy planet being Mercury, and the Last Judgement with the coffins, and the Sun card here, with the two children playing, and all of the dangers of each grade as we ascend the Tree of Life in our spiritual journey. Crowley is elucidating for us each of the challenges, each of the states of mind that we have to move into, and the differences between the initiate going through these states and a normal person, a regular person who is asleep going through the same states, because we're all the same other than the state that we're in, and people are at the end of the day what they do, not what state they are in. So we'll leave the bedtime story there. I'm going to go and open the gate to Arcadia. Our website Arcadia is live tomorrow at the time of this recording at the spring equinox, and I know we're going through very challenging and turbulent times at the moment, but tomorrow is the spring equinox, and by hook or by crook we are going to go down that line as the light extends itself, and see how we are as we go through it and on the other side of it as well. So best wishes everyone. I hope you're looking after yourselves as best you can in each of your different areas, and whatever condition and state your area is in, let's keep concentrating on what is important to us at all times, because our wand is our value, is what we cast our magic with, is what's important to us and where we point the attention of that wand to. So let's point it upwards at all times. Okay, thanks a lot for your time and attention, and we'll meet back here tomorrow at 9 p.m. my time, UK time, and look after yourselves everyone. And if you've got any questions we want to take into tomorrow and the day after, the day after, the day after, time without end in the everlasting day, then we will address those as we go along. Okay, bye for now.